So, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for choosing this session. I really love the crowds, and again, thank you. Alex, thank you so much for this awesome intro. You've done half of my speech for me already, so I don't even know what to do. But just again, by way of intro, my name is Natalie Kaminski. I am a co-founder and CEO of a company called Jet Rockets. We are a custom software, web, and mobile application development company. We are headquartered in New York City, where I've lived for the past 18 years. And we have a development center in Batumi, Georgia, that houses about 50 of our employees. And we have about 20 or 25 people who are located globally all over the world. So today, I have a confession to make. I've spent maybe a week or two prior to this talk trying to prepare. And I had an elaborate speech written out, an awesome presentation, very structured. And then I did the one over, and I realized that that's not me. So today what I'm going to do, I'm just going to tell you a story. And I want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you guys have questions in the middle, don't wait until the end. Raise your hand, ask, let's make this a dialogue. I want this to be interactive if possible. If not, that's okay too. Again, I'm going to take you on a journey with me and my team, and hopefully you learn something new. So we're going to start on February 24th, 2022. On that day, like many others in the world, I woke up to the most horrific news because I learned that Russia invaded Ukraine. I don't know about you guys, but I had a whole range of emotions at that very moment. Despite, I woke up in my cozy New York apartment many, many thousand miles away from the war zone. I was scared. I was terrified, as a matter of fact. I was shocked. I was shocked at the fact that such a huge invasion, such war was possible in our day and age. But I was also scared because I was scared for Ukraine, for Ukrainians. You see, I am Ukrainian. I also have family. My sister and her two daughters, two kids, they live in Ukraine. They still are in Ukraine today. They live in the city of Dnipro. And they experience a lot of, airstrikes and bombardments almost on a daily basis. It's scary. But I was also terrified for the fact that on that day, I had 50 people who lived in Russia, in the city of Tver, and who helped me build my company. And I wasn't sure what's going to happen to them. Are they going to get mobilized? Are they going to be sent to this war? I wasn't sure what's going to happen to my business that I spent a decade building. I wasn't, I was scared, and I had no answers, and that probably was the first time in the history of me running my business, of being a leader for all these people, of me not having the answers and not knowing what to do. So what I did, I obviously, got on Zoom call with my partners, Igor and Alexei, and both Igor and Alexei at that time, they lived in Russia, and they helped run our development center there. And we got on Zoom and we started talking, and of course, we were brainstorming, what does it mean? Is this going to be like a 2-day invasion? What's going to happen? I mean, Kiev was supposed to fall within 3 days. That was the expectation, right? I mean, happy to say that wasn't the case. But finding yourself in the situation of having so many people rely on you, and not just your employees, but also your clients to whom you have obligations, it was damn, it was scary. And as we were talking, suddenly a thing dawned upon me, and I realized, oh my God, we never did any business in Russia, as in we never had any clients in Russia, but we did have those 50 employees who were being paid salaries from my American company. And then I kind of went further and I said, if I pay their salaries and they pay tax in Russia, that means they're supporting this war, which means I'm supporting this war. And it's like, oh shit, no, this is not happening. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to send whatever financial support to those war chests, even if if it's very little. So a decision came very quickly, like within an hour. It wasn't even a decision. There was no discussion. There was nothing to discuss. It was a non-negotiable moment that we're going to have to get up and we're going to have to leave Russia, and we're going to have to do it as soon as possible. The next question that came up on that very day was, what about these guys? What about these 50 folks in Russia who helped us build our business, who helped us become the reputable company that we are in the market? Are we just going to fire them all and just hire a brand new team somewhere else? What are we going to do with our office? What are we going to do about this history that we've had for over a decade, building this amazing company in a small town, by the way, of Tver, which was very purposeful. We never wanted to have an office in either Moscow or St. Petersburg, because we did not want to, support those huge cities because they were getting a lot of financial incentives as it is. We actually wanted to create opportunities for people in smaller towns. We wanted to bring Western values. We wanted to educate people about how to do things, quote unquote, a better way. And so, after quick deliberation, we said, well, I guess we're just going to move them all with us. What's there to discuss? And so we started thinking about, all right, so we made a decision to leave. We made a decision to take all of our people with us. Where are we going to go? So few considerations we had to keep in mind. One, we wanted to find a country that would allow Russian citizens to enter without a visa. Two, we wanted to make sure that whatever country we're going to go to would actually be sort of friendly towards IT businesses. And ideally, there would be some security maybe through NATO, because again, nobody knew what Putin was going to do the next day. So we decided to make Turkey our destination. And so within 2 days after the invasion had started, Igor and Alexei packed 2 bags, got their families, their kids, and headed to the airport. And by the way, these are photos of the airport in Russia. This is a Sheremetyevo, I believe, airport in Moscow. Not too many people, I see. I don't know if you know that or not, but many planes were grounded. Many companies said we're not flying in and out of Russia. So getting out of Russia was a quest on its own. It cost a lot of money, and finding tickets on those outbound planes was simply impossible. Yet, they headed to the airports. Another thing that we learned on the way to the airports is that FSB agents were kind of lurking around exit points of Russia because they were trying to identify IT folks and prevent them from leaving Russia. So they would, literally stop people at the borders, question them for hours, and make them miss their flights. So my partner, being clever as he is, packed his scuba diving gear with him, creating himself a beautiful alibi that came in very handy because he was indeed taken into a separate room at the border crossing. He's being questioned, and he said, "Are you kidding me? I'm going on a scuba adventure. Here's my scuba diving gear. I mean, why would I pack it otherwise?" When he called me the next morning after landing in Turkey, he said, I was so terrified. Until the plane took off, I could not even breathe. And another thing he told me is that the day before he got to the airport, he went to the cemetery and he took a photo of his grandparents' grave site because he still doesn't know whether or not he's going to see it again. So while they were settling in Turkey and trying to find out whether or not we'd be able to open up a legal entity and get our business up and running in Turkey and kind of prepare for our employees to relocate, Visa and MasterCard decided to no longer service cards issued to Russian citizens. And by the way, I support every such decision and every such action. But at that very moment, I had to call up my partners, wake them up in the middle of the night, and I said, "Look, guys, your cards are not going to work tomorrow, so whatever you do, go to the banks." So they got up in the middle of the night, they got into a cab, and they started driving from one ATM machine to another, trying to retrieve as much cash as was possible. And they told me that as they were driving from one bank to another, so were herds of IT people from Russia. They literally said, "Oh my God, we could have a nice recruiting operation right here for our company." So that was, an event. Unfortunately, within the first week, we've learned that Turkey was not a good option for us for various reasons, including the fact that there were very specific limitations on how you had to hire a certain number of people of Turkish residence or Turkish citizenship for every foreign resident you hire. So we started to you know, look for alternative destinations. And Georgia came to mind. After a quick internet search, we found a company that agreed to help us with all of our administrative paperwork and, you know, registering of the entity and setting up bank accounts and everything. So again, remember, we're still week one of the invasion, so things are moving extremely fast. By that time, we already had a few families who followed our partners immediately with them into Turkey. And as you can see, there were children involved and, you know, people of all ages. And so we decided that those who were in Turkey at the time, we're going to just rent a van and we're going to drive from Turkey to Batumi. That kind of seemed like a good idea. And, you know, they spent 9-10 hours on the road driving, arriving at a hotel, which I had found for them while, you know, sitting in my cozy apartment in New York. The thing about Batumi in March, because this was like, I guess, first week of March, is it's not really a tourist season. You know, things are shut down, but it's also kind of cool. It's not like super cold, but it's very wet, and it's not very, you know, nice. So I came across this guy on the internet who said, I have a hotel, and it's an empty hotel, and you could rent the entire hotel, and you can, you know, use that as sort of like this place for all of your employees to come in and stay while they're searching for more permanent housing. And I said, that sounds amazing. And he said, well, send me $500. And I said, okay. You know, I wasn't thinking much, so I sent him $500 via PayPal. And there was a hotel. The problem with that hotel, if you can tell from the second picture, is there was no electricity. There was no heat. There was no hot water. But, you know, it had some bedding, which was very damp and cold. And that's where my team ended up, you know, day one in Georgia. And of course, you know, the wives weren't having any of that. The children were not very happy, but it was what it was. So again, Igor and Alexei, they get in cabs and they start driving around Batumi trying to find an alternative hotel, which eventually they did. So we rented another hotel, which, you know, luckily had electricity and heat and water. And that became our base for the first month in Batumi. That was our base where people who were leaving Russia were coming and staying in that hotel. And I'm just sharing a few pictures with you guys to create a bit of a, you know, a more cohesive story. So people starting, you know, moving, getting on the airplane. And by the way, I was the one who acquired many new skills. You know, I became a travel agent because I was the one searching for all those all those airplane tickets. I also became very familiar with Batumi real estate. So if you ever need anything, you know, I'm your gal. You know, I'll hook you up. So, you know, people started to move to Batumi and to join kind of the group. And in the meantime, Igor, Alexei, and this new company we found helped us register a new entity, JR LLC, which provided employment contracts to all of our incoming, you know, new immigrants to Georgia, which of course provided them an opportunity to open bank accounts, to rent apartments, to kind of settle for the foreseeable future. You have to understand that even at that moment, all of us were hopeful that this war is going to end very soon. But, you know, things just kept on going. And so more and more people joined us in Georgia. And people were reuniting and, of course, you know, leaving their families behind, their pets, everything. But really taking a stand against the aggression and saying, you know, I don't want to be part of it. Yes, many of these people feel that they are definitely at fault for not doing anything about, you know, ousting Putin sooner, but that's a whole separate talk and a whole separate conversation. We were dealing with the situation at hand. So over the next 2 months, we got as many people as were willing to go with us out of Russia. Some of them did not have passports. Therefore, they had to opt to move to other areas such as Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, places that allowed Russian citizens to come through without passports. In the meantime, I was working diligently with various creative solution providers to get their passport processing expedited. And I can tell you, there's not too many things that $500 cannot solve in Russia. On May 1st, 2022, I had the most difficult meeting in the history of jet rockets. We gathered everyone on Zoom and we made an announcement that whoever did not join us in our relocation adventure would be let go as of July 1st. Like I said, there was no opportunity for anyone to stay and continue to work in Russia, paying taxes and participating in the Russian economy. That was a non-negotiable principle for me, for my partners, and for my employees. And while not everyone agreed with that decision, as a leader, as the founder, as the CEO, that was no time to look for consensus. So fast forward a couple of months, June, July, we decided to rent an office space. And while it wasn't as big and nice and cozy as it was in Russia, it was an okay place that we wanted to call our home. And what happened is that as we were renovating the place, we learned that Georgia does not have IKEA. I mean, who would have thought, right? And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but in the US and everywhere else in the world, if you want to furnish an office space affordably, you go to IKEA. So like, what do we do now? After considering various options, we decided that the best thing would be to rent a couple of trucks in Russia and get all of our stuff out of our Russian office to Georgia. Which also, by the way, created an opportunity for our relocated employees to ask their families to pack some of their stuff that they left behind. Some people even sent Instapots over. I mean, that's crazy, but they did. So we had 2 trucks. The first one makes it to Georgia without a hitch. They pass through the border, they arrive in Georgia, they go through customs, and we've got a couple of desks. We've got a couple of chairs, we've got our desks, our chairs, everything is nice and cozy. The second truck, again, gets stuck at the border crossing because the Russian border officers are not allowing them to get out. And again, $500, people. That's all it took. And these are a few pictures of after. So, we've created a nice and cozy place. But I have to tell you, honestly, this is more than an office space. This is a place of community. This is a place for gathering for those people who left everything behind. Who left their families, their friends, their lives, everything behind, And they don't just come to work at the Jet Rockets office. They also come and, to watch soccer games. They play, they celebrate birthdays there. It's really a place of community. In August, I finally decided to visit Georgia for the first time. And we're going on this awesome company offsite. And we everyone reunites and we spend beautiful week together. And we, go sightseeing in the mountains. And it feels like life is getting somewhat normal. And then September 21 happens, 2022, and that means mobilization in Russia, official, right? Not that it did not happen before, but now it was official. And suddenly, every doubt that my employees may have had in the back of their minds goes out the door, and they realize that maybe we've saved their lives. So today, we kind of came to realize that this war is probably going to go on for a while. And even after it's done, I don't see an opportunity for jet rockets to ever go back to Russia. Nor do I want to. So, people are now trying to establish their new lives. We've grown from 50 people before the war to 75. We've hired many Ukrainians who actually still live in Ukraine today, because it's one of our mission is to create job opportunities for Ukrainians and give them an opportunity to work, even when they have to miss meetings because they have to be hiding out in shelters or do not have electricity. We continue to grow, we continue to be a community. And the lesson that I've learned, or rather looking back at this year, there are plenty of challenges. They still exist today. I mean, for instance, despite having employment contract with a Georgian entity and paying taxes for the past year, almost none of my Russian citizen employees were able to get a permanent residence card in Georgia. They're being denied. And look, I understand why. They're not able to travel, they're not able to plan beyond like very short horizon. And that's tough, especially for people who have families. And yet they stay and they continue to double down on their decision. We did come out a much stronger, more loyal, more bonded organization as a result. Most people who work for Jet Rockets today don't view Jet Rockets as simply an employer. They look at us as their community. We've grown in size, but I think we've also grown internally. So as a leader, some of the lessons that I wanted to share with you today, and I hope I've succeeded, that sometimes making fast decisions without spending a whole bunch of time on thinking and planning is the right thing to do. You have to trust your gut. You have to go with whatever it tells you. Having non-negotiables, having convictions certainly helps. Empathy, I've learned, is a feature. It's not a bug. I think this year has shown me and everyone in my team that having empathy for one another, being patient with one another, helping one another, supporting one another is what makes a good company. No matter what is it that you do, you could be working for a grocery store or building software. Just really, truly care about one another. And as far as embracing the imposter syndrome, I'm a woman in a largely male-dominated industry. I've been in this industry since 1998. And I've learned a couple of things, including, you have to find your voice. And sometimes as a woman, you have to be louder and more bold than your male counterparts. And then you share your story and you own it. Thank you.